Okay. Amy, can you mute yourself again? See, I don't know where this feedback's coming from, so we can test. Okay, that did it.
Okay.
Okay, great.
A little parakeet in the back.
Who said bird?
That is mine. So, my apologies, but that's why I wanted to do this on my laptop so I could move rooms. But so she's going to make a noise occasionally, I'm afraid.
That's funny.
Okay, so I guess I should introduce Tom. Tom right here. He's currently pursuing his Doctor of Education in Instruction in Systems Thinking at Columbia Teachers College. His artistic passion is dynamic storytelling through interactive technology and game environments. And he continues to work on both modding and in-paper role-playing games, which is PNP time. Tom is also a member of the Education Special Interest Group of the International Game Developers Association and an advisory panel of the Northern New Jersey chapter of the IGDA. This is Tom Toynton, everybody.
Right. Thank you very much, Tom, for joining us and working with Julian and Kwasi. I'm the faculty of the media history class, so thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you. So Tom, tell us, like how did your passion?
When I was young, it's like most people, but back in the days when the media was first starting, was on some of the had the opportunity, and my father was very big into providing the latest technologies to the family, so I got to play on all the original, consoles, and had computers and all that stuff. And my family in general was just always big. We were big into board and card games, just in terms of family get-togethers. Everybody from the grandparents down to the teenagers would play card games together just to socialize and kind of build that family bond. And so it became a huge part of my life early on. I also was very into pen and paper role playing and had a lot of great explorative experiences, learning about myself and to socialize. And, so games have always been a really huge part of my life.
Okay. Now, it says here that you're pursuing a doctorate at Columbia. Why exactly are you doing that? Like, what exactly is it that you want to do with that degree that you couldn't do prior without it?
Well, I'm a tenured professor, so I obviously don't need it for that. But I used to do a lot of consulting in K-12 in media, in terms of games and education. Especially right now, it's a big push for use of games within the K-12 environment, especially for STEM and STEAM. And it's an area where I see a lot of misperceptions and misuse of games. And my doctoral studies with the idea, really wanting to know the medium was truly capable of, whether it was really something that had a ability to impact and change the educational and drawbacks to using it for education.
Okay. It also says on your bio that you are a lead game designer at Polar Climate Change, which is funded by the National Science Foundation. Can you tell us a bit more exactly is your duty as a lead game designer?
Yes, although that's actually was up through last year, so that bio is a little old. I'm still doing stuff for them, but we're not actually actively designing anything new right now. So that is, the Polar Partnership is a collaboration. It's a National Science Foundation grant for $7 million that incorporates Stephanie Furman from Barnard, and it's Columbia, University of Alaska, University of someone up further north that I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry. And individuals such as Ken Eklund and some key science advisors based out of like the for the Antarctic and also Antarctic, and also the Museum of Natural History. And so what we've been part of the focus on the way I got involved was they were looking at doing the goal is to educate people in different ways about climate issues and the melting ice in the Arctic. And they they got Ken Eklund involved because he had done World Without Oil and other large ARG projects. And they wanted to do they were doing classroom facilitations, and they wanted to turn them into games. And so they started working on these board and card games. And I was working or starting work with one of the people on the project, which was Dr. Joey Lee at Columbia Teachers College, and he got me involved in board games. So last year and a half ago, we published the first card game, Arctic Crisis, actually about 2 years ago. And we actually had just finished working on finalizing the Antarctic version of it. And so those games are out there and being used. And the project, though, like the grant finishes up this year, or actually is finishing up right now. So that's a project that is unfortunately not gonna go any further.
Okay. So you believe climate change is a real issue? That's something you're aligned with?
Absolutely. I think we have an actual, we can just experience it throughout the year, for especially the last 3 years. In the warmer temperatures, and even the colder temperatures, like it's about extremes. It's changes in our weather patterns that are a result of it.
But I like speak. It's all like just a hoax, and that climate change. That there was an ice age. There was a warm period during the Roman time, and that basically people who are with this climate change movement, they're just
scientific minds in the world who are dealing with this. And I mean, you look at just what we know about the Earth and all these various periods, and we know that these changes do happen, but they happen over a much longer period of time, over essentially centuries, if not millennia. What we're seeing right now is an escalation in these patterns that is far faster. And the only thing that makes sense in terms of what we know geologically about our planet, and just pure scientific fact, ice that you have in the north, in the polar regions, the less heat is generated in the world, and you can visually see those regions and continue to. So it escalates itself tremendously, and it's the naysayers are not going to have much to say in 40, 50 years when you start having flooding issues in Miami. That's just
if it takes that long.
If it takes that long, exactly.
I believe Professor Smith here, she's also big on climate change as well.
Well, it's a fact. It's not, to me, it's not a matter of personal beliefs. It's like you can also say the Earth is not round because you don't see it, but if you look at the science, you know that the Earth is round. So it's the same thing. There's no denying. The question is only what we can do. But I don't want to interfere and get into this, since you're doing the interview, and it's about also about the media and
I kind of
your
follow-up
personal
question
history
too.
into media. So
If I could ask one question to you, Thomas, it's how could you use your experience and work in game design and what you do to educate younger people about the dangers of climate change and try to educate people how to reverse or at least make smaller efforts to have a smaller footprint? And how do you think interactive game design could play a role in that?
Well, I really believe that games reach a wider audience, especially younger audience, than other media. And not that that's not a correct statement. I would say obviously internet and various internet reaches a wide audience, but I would say game immerse people in a system and being able to understand affect relationships within the system is much more powerful than just watching a visual intake of information. It's something where they can actually then use their power of choice and see how their choices affect the environment, and then gain that kind of greater connection along. I mean, in general, that's what I think games can do in terms of educating people.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. I think the power of choice with gaming is such a unique thing. With most other forms of media, you don't have that immediate form to choose how you want a path to be directed in the media you're experiencing, and you could really use that to capitalize on showing people what standpoint. And
obviously, that's tough to do. We were doing those just to make them easily affordable and accessible for use in classroom environments, and it actually has been used on cruise ships. But we're also working with a group in Kiel, Germany, who do environments for museums, and they are creating a experience, an interactive experience where you make choices, and then it does a kind of over time. You see, like 1 to 5 years out, what the results of those choices are on the environment.
Right. Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead.
Tom, I would like to know, like, if not, like how often do you get game pitches? Are you often working on games or not often? How often are you in the studio working on something?
So my studio time is primarily in the summer. My teaching duties are far too heavy to be able to do much the rest of the year, but I am still doing some other things. I actually focus a lot on non-digital experiences. So my current project, in fact, I'll be going to Metatopia this weekend to get feedback on my latest idea, which is really just so storytelling and role-playing experiences are my favorite genre and type of games.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have this idea that I have not seen done well at all, which is tiles and terrain environment tiles for pen and paper and miniature wargaming. And so I've been working on that, and then I hope to do a Kickstarter for that in April or May, and then actual production, full production. And I'm also working on an actual role-playing environment story with stories with my business partner.
As part-time and as the head of the game department, can you tell us, like, in the game industry, like, will you have to have another part-time job or another hustle on the side, or can you do gaming full-time, or is it an industry where you go in and, like, you have to have another craft or skill?
So you're talking. I'm a little confused by your question. You're asking, like, could I do gaming be a game designer full time? or
Yeah, like how often are game design most of the time from your view, or is it something where, all right, you're working some of the time, but another else, like how you're teaching, is that a reality where you're like doing something else in game design?
so in the industry full time, people do it full time. Even if you're working for yourself, people do it full time. The games industry supports a lot of consulting, like the stuff that I was doing through partnership. You can do projects like that left and right, depending on your contacts and your skills. But so there's an opportunity, whether or not it's a full-time job, whether or not you're consulting, whether or not it is certainly definitely possible to support yourself just through game, and especially if you look at related industries, it is art, design, programming, media construction, writing. It's all related. All media industries are related, so there's plenty of opportunities. That being said, there are a limited number of opportunities out there, and a good eye from my program, and like myself, like they do it either consulting jobs, indie development on the side. It's not their full-time job, because while there are jobs out there, they are limited.
Okay. Now, why is it limited? Is there like a shift in the game industry, or has it always been this way, where it's been limited?
No, so it's like any. I mean, there's always a limited number of opportunities in terms of like existing full-time jobs at like say medium to large companies. Say like in this area. The only AAA studio we have that is the whole studio, a full studio, is Avalanche Games. So you have opportunities there, but it's only been in the last year and a half that they've even hired junior level positions, and it's really it's just there is, and you look at that in comparison to the number of game programs and number of people in various media degrees or backgrounds that are interested in working in the industry, and you can see how quickly it becomes very competitive.
So like one day I think like I might be interested in like doing sound design on a gaming team. But I want to know, is that a position in the industry that's like in demand?
So it yes, they're not in demand. No. Okay, so I guess to answer your question, the question is, to my knowledge, no. A lot of the sound design that is done, is not like heavily in-house teams. You would have it done by people in-house who it's one of the hats they wear, so that they do other things and they do sound design. There's a lot of it that gets outsourced too. So there are several recording studios in the Metro New York area, TV and animation, that they also do sound design for games, and they have people dedicated to that. Some of them are certified to actually put the sound assets into particular game engines on various platforms, and those and they get and they get a good amount of work from that. So it's it's done in the area is contracted. So people like Alyssa, been working in the industry for quite a few years now, and she, that's her full-time gig. She teaches as well, but like her primary job is doing contract work, doing sound design for games.
Very cool. And so, go ahead.
Mm.
Anyone else questions, Kwasi?
You got a question?
Oh, just a smaller question. I mean, it's kind of tying into my earlier question about like interactivity, but just over like the past 5 or 10 years, what do you think has been one of the more single large technological innovations within the game design world that's allowing it to push forward in new kind of innovative, revolutionary ways that before wasn't possible?
I would say definitely the immersion factor and the way that it's facilitated by both the infrared visual to read body language. That's still pretty, I know that that's still on the simple side in terms of how exact that technology is, but that's definitely getting better. And I know people in this area, like at NYU, who are really working heavily on being able to enhance those visual readings, be able to use them for better input, and virtual reality. I mean, this whole idea that, or interact with a keyboard and a mouse world, and that the choice, the whole, you're from choices to feedback and outcome, real at this point, just standing in a room or running around somewhere, and that's I think that's one of the biggest changes that we've seen, and it's going to continue to game experiences that we have available to create.
Yeah, so mainly really just learning people's behaviors and starting to understand them, and then you can orient that to tailored to maybe people's personalities, or kind of make it a more individualized experience for everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's
I like that take on it, Julian. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So that we can actually, like, we have a whole new realm of personal behaviors and ways that we want to interact with systems that we can play with.
Really, starts to dissolve the boundary between what the capabilities are with technology and how smart we can make it. Like a little quote yesterday: "Knowledge without wisdom is just Siri." And I thought that was just a funny little.
Say that again. I didn't catch that.
Knowledge without wisdom is just Siri. Siri, like the little smart phone device, and I mean Siri's kind of recognized as one of the your technological mate that kind of knows everything and knows your personality and has all the knowledge, but it's not quite there yet to where it's has the idea of what artificial intelligence could bring. So it's just an interesting. I feel like we're at a very crazy turning point where technology is about to go on an upward trajectory in terms of its intelligence and being able to become more human-like, and that boundary is going to dissolve further. Do you see that yourself?
I think you're right, especially with the amount of resources that are being put into AI right now, like the Google AI project. But I think that it does open up a lot of incredible opportunities for free. Though it is definitely going to grow and continue to get better.
Yeah, I think it's what we put into it, maybe, or how we our intentions for it, and how we want it to react. So Kwasi, I think your audio is muted. Be able to fix that if you go to the top.
Sorry, but yeah. No wonder why I couldn't get.
You were. No, you're good. We weren't ignoring you.
Yeah, the whole thing just messed up on me. I don't know what happened. I missed a lot of the conversation. But I did catch on the part where you were talking about virtual reality a bit, and it's likely that technology will get so advanced that we'll create simulators to the point that we could call them life. Like we can make robots that conscious that we can kind of play like creator of life.
That's a good question. That's something I've thought about since I was a kid, reading Isaac Asimov, and I'd like to. I think we're headed in that direction, and we continue to. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take. You listen to people like Michio Kaku, and it's like, yeah, it's possible. When will it happen? And just like what Julie and I were just talking about, the technology is heading in that direction. Whether or not we ever get to the point where we consider tough question.
As a creative, I would like to know what's your belief or take on God or religion?
So nothing to do with obviously there are creatives from every background, belief system out there. So that's like not something that particularly ties into me being a creative, but just as a personal question, I don't have any problem with it. I happen to be Taoist. I did a lot of exploration in my late teens and early 20s, and with different types of religions from all over the world. And I found that what closely matched my personal belief system and in terms of humans and the connection with nature was Taoism. And so I do believe in a universal spirit, like a God, but it's more a universal spirit and power as opposed to an individual being. And I think that, everybody, in just really basic terms, everybody should just be nice and nice to each other and help each other. And
I asked that question because I would like to know, like, if you think if there's a creator that may be the ultimate game designer or programmer, because there's a belief that's really starting to take a life on its own, that we live in a virtual reality, that everything around us is programmed, that with us being humans, we're limited, we have constraints. And I kind of look at it from like a video game perspective, where a programmer codes a character to not go into the fourth wall, to not go certain places. And I just want to know, like, with all like the fine detail in life and the things we see in nature, if you believe there's an intelligent force behind it, like, is there somebody who's programming this world we live in, or something?
Like I said, I believe there's a universal force. There's an order to the universe, even though we don't fully understand it. And what you're kind of it sounds like you're talking about is the concept of Plato's cave. Like, what is reality, and do we really see it? I think, and in a lot of ways, we make our own reality, right? So our backgrounds, experiences, society, regardless of our backgrounds, we have an understanding of the world around us, both scientifically and just in terms of how we're physically, our constraints, our physical constraints, how we see, how we hear, how we, how we interpret our surroundings. It limits us. So I think that not sure necessarily that it's being programmed by kind of like a computer game. I think there's a natural order that is created, but it's a universal order. I can't really say that I believe that it's being constructed.
Are you aware of anything about quantum physics and this theory that everything around us is not matter or solid, and that we're just information? Do you take
But to some extent, I've always been interested in it, and at the atomic level, and it's been proven, like they've done it. So it's just information. At some point,
Who has done it?
well, you can replicate. It's again, Michio Kaku, scientist or physicist, talks about it. He hasn't done it, and I don't remember who did it. But it wasn't, so when I say that they've teleported, it wasn't like they've taken something and it dematerialized somewhere in material structure, and taken two, if I remember, atoms, and you take two atoms that were related, or protons that were related, and you split them far apart, and then you put it. They were able to replicate its structure and physicality and everything about it in another particle, and in theory, it doesn't matter how far away it is. So, I just really do believe that there is some level of the universe that is, I mean, it is all just energy at some point. So it all becomes just how, everything, we're all made up of the same base. Like you get way, way down at the subatomic level, and we're all made up of the same stuff. It's just how it is just information.
Okay.
Very cool. Do you have anything else to add, Kwasi, or I think we should probably begin wrapping it up in a minute, just so it doesn't.
But I want his thoughts on Nintendo, the new Nintendo Switch. Tom, do you think Nintendo can make a comeback? Because I feel like they kind of made with the handheld devices, the phones. At first, when people were on phones, well, not on phones, well, on devices, it was the Nintendo. People were staring down on that. Then phones came, and it took over the handheld market, maybe away from like Apple or Android or things of that nature. Can we go that far?
Take it over now. They can certainly get back in. That whole market is really focused on, it's a smartphone. There's really no, unless you can replace what people already have. No one's going to buy a second device to carry around that's just for games unless it's incredibly, like I'm certainly, and nobody I know is going to buy something like that, because you can have incredible experiences as it is just on your phone that you already carry around with you everywhere. And the only thing that might happen would be maybe on a smartphone, or parents don't want their kids to have phones. That's my personal take, but and I really don't, and that's something that I really don't follow or have real deep thoughts about.
Yeah, because I looked at it like, the iPhone and all these phones we have, the Android, they're just phones featuring games, featuring calculators, it features whatever. I was thinking maybe Nintendo could make a switch and have games featuring a phone, featuring all the other apps we have in phones, and connect with that in the future.
They could, but they're still going to be competing. They're not going to take the market over. I mean, people are focused. I mean, it's your phone, and you're going to use whatever platform, including those in your area, right? AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, whatever it is. So that's a major consideration.
Now, Nintendo and all, do you think it's dead because the Wii U came out and it's like now they stopped making games for it? They'll stop making games for it soon. Like, what do you think of them as a gaming console system?
I think that they're still viable, and they'll continue. They'll do something else, or they'll develop in the next level. I really don't. Console wars, like I don't think any of them are going to be out of the picture. I think they're just going to keep going back and forth, and coming up with different use the different Nintendo was incredibly innovative with the Wii and changed a whole generation of gaming. I don't see why they can't do it again. So, I mean, that's really just a wait and see. There's no speculation there.
Could
I have a question.
Wait, I want to ask one last question.
Okay.
This is about Second Life. It's kind of like been incorporated into our classes, but we've never used it. And I want to know, this game, it has like a cult-like following. How much do you know about it, and are you a fan?
So it's been about 6-7 years, but I used to do a lot in Second Life. I was one of the first people doing Second Life for education, and I did a lot of programming for like high schools, building Second Life environments so that they could have classroom environments that have classes, like say during snow days or emergencies and things like that. It was kind of like a disaster recovery contingency for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it used in great ways for like small communities. But Second Life in particular, I think is pretty much, I mean, I don't know if it's not being, last far as I know, isn't being supported by Linden Labs anymore. In fact, I don't think they own it. Maybe somebody can validate that for me, but that's my thought in my head.
I think they still own it, but I don't have the feeling they're investing in it. The software and their platform hasn't really made any advances in the last few years. I'm still on there once in a while, and I ran a few classes in there, but more passively than actively.
That being said, though, Kwasi, it's still, there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of people doing stuff similar to Second Life. Platforms that are still being done and looked at. Rick Anderson at Rutgers, head of their virtual worlds division, I believe is still involved in stuff like that. It's the concept of being able to have a platform where you can build a space for people to interact in a virtual way, and think of it like, you think of it like a game, like an MMO, like World of Warcraft or something. Those have been used in the classrooms for education as well, or just for people to congregate and get together, even if you're not playing the game. It's a way for people to get together and communicate, no matter where you are, and what to gather for common interests. And that's what Second Life was always really good at, was the ability for organizations and groups of people to get together and communicate. And so in that respect, I think it's still very still valuable.
Oh wow.
Okay, could I just quickly say something before we completely outrun your time and patience? At the very end, we usually open it up to the rest of the class if they have any urgent questions. But before that, I want to ask Julian and Kwasi if they have asked their most important questions.
Yeah, I feel like we got
at this
through it.
point.
Mm-hmm. You guys can have the floor.
Okay, Denise, Amy, Louis, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah.
But maybe not make it too long, because we've already kept Thomas for quite a while.
Okay, so a quick question. Back in the Nintendo era, did you always know that you wanted to be involved in the video game industry? Was there a second profession? And my second part to that question is, if you were the god of the video game world, what type of technology would you create?
So I to be honest, I fell into the industry. I had always done it as a hobby. Like I've always created game experiences, and even when I first started getting involved in the industry, I volunteered my time to work on projects like